final match of round 5 was a West Country matchup between Exeter Chiefs and Gloucester at a very sunny Kingsholm. Both sides have had shaky starts to the season, Gloucester losing at home to Sale in round 1, while Rob Baxter had been very worried about the first half display in the loss to Leicester in round 4. The Chiefs' first ever win at the top table had been in the very first game against Gloucester at Sandy Park, and since then meetings between the two sides have been very close, the Devon side having won by a single point 28-27 at Kingsholm 2 years ago, while last season had seen the Cherry and Whites edge it 18-16. And the latest visit to Gloucester saw a mixed start for Baxter's men, the Chiefs winning 2 kickable penalties inside 10 minutes, but Gareth Steenson, the league's most accurate kicker at 90%, missed both efforts. But Gloucester were leaking so many penalties that eventually the Chiefs' number 10 did hit the target. The Irishman, third time lucky on 19 minutes to get the scoreboard moving. Right from the kick-off, Gloucester responded. A brilliant knockdown by Mike Tyndall enabled Tom Savage to collect the ball. When it was recycled, Billy Twelvetrees offloaded to Martin Thomas and the fullback sped through to score. Freddie Burns couldn't convert, and despite another Steenson miss on 23 minutes, the Ulsterman put the Chiefs back into a 6-5 lead on half an hour as the pressure began to build on the Gloucester line. And the pressure told 2 minutes later when Ben White muscled his way over the whitewash from close range. Rowan Kitt had to get confirmation from the TMO, but the visitors had a deserved 13-5 lead after the conversion. Chief skipper Dean Mumm had already notched 2 tries this season and was galloping towards a third when he was cut down by Charlie Sharples. Prop Huani Tui also went close for the visitors, but the half ended 13-5. Exeter kept up the intensity after the break. A high tackle by Mike Tyndall allowed Steenson to move the score on to 16-5, while at the other end Burns missed another kick. In the last quarter, the visitors turned the screw, Mumm powering through the Gloucester line to touchdown and get that third try of the season, and a 23-5 lead after Steenson's conversion. Surely that was game, set and match Chiefs, but again Gloucester was sparked into life. Just 2 minutes later and Johnny May was touching down. Brilliant offloads from Hawaii Edmonds and Burns sending the winger in to score just right of the posts. And this time Burns could not miss, and there was a ray of hope for the Cherry and Whites at 23-12 down. But the Chiefs rounded off a very efficient display with 2 Steenson penalties to give the visitors a win that lifts them to 6th in the table, although a hypercritical Baxter may say there was a bonus point in the offing. Gloucester, on the other hand, lose again at home. A place that was traditionally a fortress seems to be becoming more pregnable. Final score at Kingsholm, Gloucester Rugby 12, Exeter Chiefs 29.
Round 5 of the Aviva Premiership at the Medeski Stadium saw London Irish face their London rivals Harlequins, with both teams in serious need of another win to add to their respective campaigns. Irish welcomed back George Skivington as prop John Yapp made his first start, and the game began well for the home side when Shane Geraghty stepped up to slot the first penalty. Despite a missed first attempt, Nick Evans was more successful with his second kick at goal for Quins, 3 points apiece after quarter of an hour. A second penalty from Geraghty put Irish back in the lead after some decent pressure, but the game reached the break honours even at 6-all when Evans made it 2 from 3. The second half reached the hour mark before the next score, not that Quins didn't have the opportunities though, both Evans and first half replacement Boddicker missing a penalty each. It was a good spell of possession from Irish that saw the ball kept in the forwards' hands, and Kiwi Blair Cowan nudged over from close range. Geraghty added the conversion to create a 7-point lead before Irish struck again inside 2 minutes. Topsy Ojo playing with his head up and spotting the space out wide for winger Alex Lewington, who kept Boddicker guessing as he chased him all the way into the corner, the try unconverted for a 12-point lead. With 10 minutes to go, replacement scrum half England's Danny Kerr hoped to spark a Quins comeback with this cheeky solo effort when he saw no one home defensively for Irish, Evans adding the conversion to close the gap to 5. But Quins turned down 2 late penalty efforts that could have gleaned 6 points on the board, and London Irish remained solid in defence. At the final whistle, a jubilant Medeski Stadium celebrated a great home win that moves Irish up to 8th in the table, while Quins dropped to 7th. Final score, London Irish 18, Harlequins 13.
Good, the fly half, got things going at Allianz Park. Not Andy, dropped to the bench by Wasps, but Alex moved to 10 by Saracens for the rested Owen Farrell. That was the only score of the opening 40, but the half-time introduction of England's current number 10 soon livened things up. Farrell and Good both involved in a try for Will Fraser on his first start of the season, one of 11 changes from the Saracens team that beat Quins last week. But this London derby wasn't settled quite yet. Farrell's conversion meant a 10-point lead, which was halved with 15 minutes left, as Wasps' two standout performers combined. Joe Launchbury and particularly Christian Wade doing their bit to send skipper Chris Bell over. And a week after beating Worcester for their first win in 11 games, Wasps started to ponder inflicting Sarri's first home defeat for 18 months. Their excitement at this prospect proved their undoing. Scrum half Charlie Davis a little too keen at the ruck for the liking of referee Luke Pearce. And Farrell stepped up. This penalty and two others in a 10-minute spell turned a slightly tight spot for Sarries into a fifth straight win of the season. But even after that, all wasn't quite plain sailing. While Wade stood out, his England rival slipped up. Chris Ashton's deliberate knock-on, bringing a yellow card that apparently only he didn't see coming. Wasps have a handy habit of picking up losing bonus points, and in the minute that remained, they took full advantage of the extra man to do it again. Bell's second try of the game still needed the extras, and all eyes turned to the other Good, the fly half. As Ashton looked on, replacement Andy avoided more late heartache from the tee. Wasps deserve that, but whatever team they pick, it seems no one can stop Saracens at the moment. Even on the first weekend of October, the unmistakable air of a relegation decider surrounded this fixture, and only one team embraced the challenge. Newcastle hadn't won at Worcester for 9 years, but a lead courtesy of Rory Clegg's early penalty was soon extended by Carlo Del Fava's battering ram and Mike Blair's opportunism. The Warriors' response to a 10-point deficit within 10 minutes found both creativity and luck in short supply. Chris Pennell unable to chase his own chip through, and after Blair tied it up for the Falcons, the TMO decided that Rob Vickers' interruption of the fullback's run was accidental. Worcester were at least able to go back to an earlier infringement, and Ignacio Mieres managed to move the scoreboard, but the home side still trailed 13-3 at the break. After it, Newcastle weathered a sin-binning for prop Oliver Tomaszek comfortably enough, as Worcester's surges lacked invention, execution and above all confidence. Mieres was at least able to make amends for this fumble straight away. Another penalty which reduced their arrears to a converted try. And they managed the first part of that requirement with 12 minutes left. Once again the Warriors pack sought a way through, but a little bit of guile found it. Winger David Lemmy sneaking in amid the Giants to touchdown, and Worcester looked to have the fight to finish the job. But Paul Warwick couldn't land the conversion, and Newcastle's response to this threat to their second win of the season was simply to charge upfield themselves. Mark Wilson and Chris York created a hole that Worcester couldn't fill legally. Referee Martin Fox intervened, and Phil Godman landed a penalty to finish the job and condemned Worcester to a 10th successive Premiership defeat. By full-time, a resigned mood had settled on Sixways. All smiles for the Falcons, of course, and only one of these teams can look forward with too much optimism.
The most eagerly anticipated clash of the season so far saw Jim Mallander's Northampton Saints travel to Welford Road for the round 5 clash against injury-ravaged Leicester Tigers, with Richard Cockerell in his booth for the final time. The tone was set early on by Luther Burrell's hit on Anthony Allen, the centre forcing a turnover, and Tigers were eventually penalised for not rolling away. Stephen Myler nailing the penalty from almost halfway. But Burrell became the villain, as his tip tackle on the same player had JP Doyle reaching for his pocket, and Toby Flood, having missed an early effort, levelling the scores on 15 minutes. But 3 minutes later, a bullocking run by the extremely impressive Sam Dickinson helped draw another penalty, which Myler had no problem in slotting to give Saints the 6-3 lead. With Burrell back from his stint on the sideline, Myler and Flood exchanged penalties as the intensity increased. George North had a golden opportunity to score the first try late in the half, but the Welshman knocked on after Ben Foden had chipped through beautifully. 9-6 is the way it stayed at half-time, but Saints looked dangerous, and it only took 6 minutes after the restart for the visitors to cross the whitewash. Dickinson involved again in a long build-up that had an air of inevitability about it, and it would be Alex Corbisiero that would muscle over in the end. Machine Myler converted for a 16-6 lead, but Flood, having missed another kick earlier in the half, got his radar working again to narrow the lead to 7 points. Saints number 8 Dickinson carried for 83 metres during the game, 30 more than anyone else, and the 28-year-old, finally free of injury, almost got the next score, but the TMO judged that Blaine Scully and Ben Youngs had got their hands under the ball. Then came Tigers' first real attack of the match, a fine break by Flood putting Jordan Crane into space, and with Adam Thompson on the overlap, the number 8 just had to give the right ball, but it was just out of reach, and Myler got the next score. His 4th penalty extending the lead to 99 on 66 minutes. With Leicester showing more in attack, Nicky Gonover finally broke through. The Saints defence caught him, but killed the ball. Referee Doyle brandishing yellow cards to Lewis Deakin and Courtney Laws for dissent in the interim, as Flood narrowed the lead to 19-12. With 40 men aside, there seemed to be more room and the action went end-to-end. But with Leicester showing more control, a series of lineouts ended with Ed Slater coming off a great angle to dot down for the crucial score. Flood had no problem with the conversion and suddenly the scores were level. Tigers had the scent, and with the scrum put in just 10 metres from the Saints line, the stage looked set for a Flood drop goal. The brilliant sniping by Lee Dixon saw the scrum half nick the ball at the base and bring it to safety, offloading to Jamie Elliott, who kicked through but the ball went dead. So a 19-all scoreline, perhaps flattering Tigers, but only the second draw between these great rivals in the Premiership, the first being back in 1998. The return fixture at Franklin's Gardens next March promises to be even spicier. With Bath in one of the top 4 playoff places for the first time in a long time, Gary Gould's men were favourites to go to the AJ Bell Stadium, take the points from Sale and continue their impressive start to the season. But a couple of key absentees, notably Matt Banahan and Anthony Watson, meant that perhaps Bath would not be so potent in attack, but still fielded an impressive backline, whilst Sale's mix and match outfit with the enigma that is Danny Cipriani and under the leadership of Steve Diamond would certainly give their all. And it was the enigma that kicked Sale into an early 3-0 lead. The Cipriani drop goal on 10 minutes, reward for good early pressure from the home side. But just a minute later and the visitors had crossed the whitewash. Some smart signalling from Peter Stringer sending Samisa Rokodaguni barrelling down the blind side through a number of Sale tackles and to dot down for a 7-3 lead after the successful George Ford conversion. A Rob Miller and Mark Cueto clash of heads saw the two in the blood bin, and another Ford enter the fray. This time Joe Ford to do battle with his brother, while Dad watched on from the sidelines. Minutes later and Cipriani had his first penalty, narrowing the lead to 7-6 after 23 minutes. With Cueto back on, the Premiership's leading finisher helped set up Sale's next score. A nicely worked try for Andy Forsyth after the Fords had claimed good field position. Cipriani nailed the conversion from out wide to take the lead to 13-7 after half an hour. And the ex-London Wasps and Melbourne Rebels standoff traded penalties with Ford to make the half-time score 16-10 in favour of the hosts. Cipriani kicked his third penalty on 48 minutes, with Ford getting one back 8 minutes later to make it 19-13. But the Bath 10 had missed one in the meantime, and another after Sale's second row Michael Patterson was yellow-carded for kicking the ball away in a ruck. Somehow the Sharks held on through the yellow card and for the rest of the game. Diamond up and down from the stand to pitch side like a yo-yo. And despite Bath's best efforts and the introduction of Gavin Henson and company, the visitors could not breach the white and claret wall, and Sale held on for a famous win. Final score at the AJ Bell Stadium, Sale Sharks 19, Bath Rugby 13.